And discussion on education heating up over at our state capitol. Education has been a hot button issue surrounding the now approved social studies standards and a proposed rule for schools to take up citizenship status at enrollment.
And this morning, State Superintendent Ryan Walters, he's in our studio. He'll be live with us shortly. But for now, we want to send it over to KOCO's Dakota Wapakichi, bringing us the latest on what's happening at the Capitol and what we're hearing from the governor's office. Dakota.
Yeah, well, good morning. Citizenship documents at enrollment has many lawmakers, including actually the governor, scratching their head. The governor plus his team have said that this is really just all about accountability. Now, there have been several bills filed that would change how the State Board of Education operates, but all of this stems around conversations about schools requiring citizenship documents at enrollment. Now, we talked to the governor in February after he replaced 3 State Board of Ed members.
Collecting data on kids and using them as political pawns is not something that helps law enforcement. And unfortunately, we've got people that are really trying to attack 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old kids, and I'm not going to let that happen.
Now, after that, the board members that the governor did put in went into those meetings wanting to discuss those hot button issues, but they weren't allowed because it really was not on the agenda. Now, lawmakers took it on themselves to file a bill that would allow them to do so. And I talked to the state superintendent, Ryan Walters, in early March, and he said he really didn't mind the bill.
And frankly, I would like to see that be a bill that applies to local school boards as well, and every state board. I think it's a good policy, and so look, we're gonna be in support of it, and so there's no issues on my end there.
Now, that bill did actually not make it through the Capitol, but this week, right before a huge deadline here at the state Capitol, a bill about a different topic actually was changed to focus on the State Board of Education. It would increase the board member count from its current 7-member makeup to 10. The governor would get 6 appointments to it, and the House Speaker and Senate Pro Tem would both get 2 appointments. Now, this really came late in the day, and I was able to catch up with the House Speaker, who said those conversations about reshaping the State Board of Ed will continue on through the rest of session.
This has been something that the governor's asked for, is for us to have language that would potentially revise how things could get on the school board agenda.
Now, State Superintendent Ryan Walters has spoken out on social media about this, calling it a blatant power grab. And right now, the State Superintendent is live in our studio, ready to discuss these latest issues with KOCO's Kylie Walker. Kylie?
Yeah, Dakota, thank you. We are here with State Superintendent Ryan Walters. Good morning. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's talk about this tweet that you sent out yesterday. I actually want to pull it up here so people at home can see it. Here it is. You have called Senate Bill 646 a power grab. Now, let's talk about how you believe that this would take away authority from your office and what your response to that is.
Yeah, let's start here. First of all, it's very disappointing to see the governor act in this way. I hear it from Oklahomans all the time. They're tired of the lack of transparency. They're tired of backroom deals being cut. What you see is the governor going behind the scenes here trying to cut a last-minute deal to say, I want to control the Board of Education. I want to take a constitutional office holder's power away from him. And why? He doesn't like my position on green energy. The governor's told me that. That's his problem with me. He's way out of step with Oklahoma voters. He's way out of step with Oklahomans. And the reality is Oklahomans voted for me to put me in office, to put the reforms in place, to get our schools back on track. We've been doing it in a record way. But again, the governor's politics are way out of line with Oklahomans, so he's trying to take it out on me.
And I do want to get to the governor's response because we just got a statement from his office. This discussion about this bill, Senate Bill 646, it comes after months of discussion at the state capitol around your office's plan to have districts basically take in the citizenship status of students at enrollment. The governor saying here today, in part, let me see, I'm refreshing my notes here. The Board of Education is a constitutional board tasked with oversight of the State Department of Education. The governor appointed 3 strong conservatives with a variety of professional experience to ensure the state was well represented. If Superintendent Walters spent less time focusing on headlines and more time focusing on the education of Oklahoma's kids, there will be a lot less friction between him and the board. What's your response to that?
I mean, the governor told you right there, he doesn't support President Trump's immigration agenda. The governor needs to own that. If he's going to continue to undermine President Trump, he needs to own that with the people of Oklahoma. If he's going to continue to support green energy and take that out on me, he needs to own that and be very upfront with the people of Oklahoma. No, he knows what he did. I mean, it's very obvious there. He's put 3 board members on that only does what he says, that are undermining the reforms we've put in place. Oklahomans are seeing an America First agenda in our schools. They like it. They see what's going on. And again, Governor Stitt is way out of step with Oklahomans here. He's way out of step with President Trump, and it's really unfortunate for the state.
And I do want to get back to Senate Bill 646 because it does say, as it reads right now, that it gives some state lawmakers there at the Capitol the power to appoint members to the State Board of Education. What's your response to that?
So I have no problem with that. You know, if we want to put more people on the Board of Education from the Senate and House, that's fine. But to be clear, here's what the bill does, the biggest thing. It gives the governor control of the agenda for the board meeting. So this means the governor can do whatever he wants. He can force anything through the Board of Education at any point in time without the statewide elected office holder having say in that. So that is absolutely not what voters voted for. That's not the way our Constitution is set up. It is for an individual to be elected by the people to set an education agenda, and that's what the governor's trying to undermine here. Again, I've got no problem with more folks on the board, but that's not what he's doing here. What he's doing is trying to control an agenda because he is out of step with Oklahoma voters, out of step with the Trump administration, and so he's lashing out at me.
And you did mention the green energy in that tweet that you sent out yesterday. Can you clarify to our viewers who might not be familiar with what you're referencing here?
Sure.
And how does it relate back to this bill here, Senate Bill 646, when looking at the State Department of Education, the Board of Education there?
Sure, yeah, I mean, the governor told me. The governor told me he got mad at me and replaced the board members because I took a position opposite of his on green energy. So that's directly from the governor. The governor came out, lashed out at me multiple times after I stood up and said, I do not believe that Oklahomans should be given subsidies to green energy. That is what that's not even a controversial position. I mean, that's what most Oklahomans believe. I'm going to fight for that. The governor believes in giving subsidies to green energy companies. He told me that, told me he didn't appreciate my position and there would be repercussions for it. And so now you're seeing them. So this isn't about education policy. It's not about what we're doing to improve test scores, which we've seen a record improvement. What this is about is me not backing his green energy scam that Oklahomans reject, and it's because I'm enforcing President Trump's immigration agenda that, again, the governor wanted to give driver's license to illegal immigrants. That is not the position of Oklahomans. That's not the position of the Trump administration. And so it is really unfortunate he's that out of step with Oklahomans.
And I want to go back to, when you talk to people here, our viewers that are watching right now, and they want to hear more about the education plan, how this all comes back to students learning in the classroom.
Sure.
What's your response to them today?
Yeah, my response is it's unfortunate the governor's playing politics instead of talking about education. We've seen record improvement. We have more teachers on merit pay. We've launched the largest tutoring program in state history. We're launching the largest summer school programs in state history for a second straight year. We're seeing more schools come off the F list than ever before. We're seeing parents choose through school choice better options for their kids. We're seeing no more DEI, but a focus on academics and a focus on improving academic outcomes. So we've seen all these record reforms, but the governor is playing politics with education, again, because of positions that I've taken that are in line with Oklahomans. He's out of step with Oklahomans. And so, again, it's not about education policy to him. It's about these positions that have nothing to do with the improvement we're seeing.
Some might see up to this point there is something maybe more to this. With it next year, looking at the governor's race here, there might be some kind of disagreement in that space. So I do want to just ask you clear here.
Yeah.
Are you considering running for governor? Or if not, are you looking to endorse any of the current candidates that have come out?
Look, we're looking at a lot of things. This summer, we've got to make a decision. So, that's something that we're looking at. I want to continue to see our education plan fully implemented this school year. Hey, we're right in the middle of testing right now, so we've been visiting schools across the state. We want to make sure our kids have learned fully through the year. We want to make sure our summer school programs get off to a good start. And then, yeah, there's some decisions that we're going to need to look at and make. And so, look, unfortunately, I do believe this is part of it. The governor has surrounded himself with the entire Speaker McCall's entire office is set up out of his office. So they're basically running a campaign for the speaker out of the governor's office. And that's unfortunate because we should be focused on the jobs at hand, and that's what we're doing. And again, we're going to continue to put the kids first. We're going to continue to put education reform at the front.
So entering the governor's race is not off the table for you right now?
No, look, we're looking at all of our options right now. And again, I've got a lot of folks that really want me to jump in. And so I've told them, look, I'm focused on this session. I'm focused on the school year. We want to continue to see our schools be as good as possible. And, we'll have conversations this summer around that.
All right, Superintendent Ryan Walters, thank you so much for coming in and talking to us about this topic here. We appreciate you and hope to see you back here on the couch, okay?
I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.